Okay, we are live on Facebook. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I have one of my most favorite people to talk to. I always say this is like talking to Albert Einstein here. I'm joined today by Jimmy Blanchette again, and we're going to talk again about geomagnetic harmonics, which is a term that Jimmy is working on. And I've always talked about disclosure. And if you listen to what Jim Semivan said, the high-level CIA guy, he was asked who's running the show, and he said they're running the show. And I think what we have is the universe, the intelligence, whatever it is, has set up everything for us. And it's up to us to figure this thing out. The whole journey is not to get the answer. It's we came here to play the game. And the example I always use is how many $10,000 Super Bowl tickets do you think you'd sell if everybody knew what the score of the game was before it started? That's what we're about here. And Jimmy is on the mark here. He's figured out a lot of this stuff, and it's absolutely fascinating to listen to him. Welcome, Jimmy, and thank you for taking time again to be with me and with the people who might be listening.
Thank you, Grant, again for having me on the show. Pleasure as always. We have always a good time presenting this material, and we have a lot of stuff to go through today. Very exciting stuff. We're going to be talking about, maybe I can share my screen briefly here, if that's all right. Let me just put this here. So I think you need to enable my screen sharing, Grant, on your side, so I can share screen.
Share screen. Okay, try it now.
Okay, here we go. Yep, let me know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So let me get a couple questions before we start. Do you find this exciting? Because there's a quote I was going to use, but it was a quote that supposed to came from Martin Luther, who was channeled in 1850, and he talked about why he was asked, why does God not reveal himself to us? And the question people always ask is, why don't the aliens land on the White House lawn? And what Martin Luther said is, because doubt, or I guess curiosity, is the instrument which forges the human spirit. If the day were to come when the human spirit or the curiosity no longer doubted, the human soul would fly off and leave the body behind, because it would have forged wings which would lie follow. And so my first question to you is, do you work on this all the time? You seem that you're on top of this. And I think that's what drives me is that curiosity of trying to figure this thing out. And when you get a little bit of the answer, it really drives you. You figure like, oh, I'm onto something. Is that basically what's going on here?
Yeah, it's very exciting. First, your quote was very interesting, by the way. I mean, clearly the answers are right in front of us. They are available, right? It is really just a matter of looking at it with a certain perspective, having an open mind, and not let concepts from mainstream science or whatever keep us from looking at this stuff, right? Because sometimes, the way society is set up, or the information is being made available, or it's like how can I say that? It's really like sometimes people will be discouraged to look into it because either mainstream science says it's not possible, it's not the way it works, and so on, right? So it shuts down our curiosity, shuts down our process to investigate further. So when we pass that, I'm a scientist myself. I mean, I do have papers published in peer-reviewed journals. I've made discoveries in my career and things like that. So I know the scientific method, and I know what mainstream science is telling us. And it's always a bit the case that initially it's always it's not possible, it's not how things work, it's not supported by evidence, right? These kind of lines. But when we dig further and we go through that process with an open mind, we start seeing things that really clearly make sense and resonates with us and are true. And so in my journey, really, more I learn and more I find things, of course, more exciting it gets, and it's very motivating to go further. As I always said, I wish I would have more time to do this work. I have a full-time job and so on, so I spend a very, very small fraction of my time into this. But it's like the information is just there, right? It's just really to be picked up and made sense of. And that's what I'm trying to do in my free time. And I try to crystallize that information in slides immediately, so it's and make it available to the public. And then this way, people can look at it, and what resonates with them, they can do their own inquiry and journey into investigating this stuff.
Do you think that people are actually watching? That people have you gotten a lot of reaction back in terms of people who have said, because that's what impressed me. It's like I had never thought about this, and I went, "Wow!" I mean, there's no doubt he's on to something very important here. And so I'm just wondering, have you got people that are now sort of trying to help you and are adding stuff to your scientific inquiry?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest, and I'm working on a book right now. I have a couple of partners I'm working with.
Wow.
To crystallize that information. Hopefully this can come out maybe mid next year, summer of next year. There's a clear interest, and it just keeps growing. It feels to me, in a sense, that it's like anything else. Anything that's new takes a little bit of time to get roots, for the roots to spread and for mainstream science to recognize it. And we'll see that today, actually. I do have examples of that, of things that were said in a few years ago, 20 years ago, well, it's not possible, it doesn't work. And now it's mainstream. We see it. I have also articles like showing, for instance, that now the hypothesis that there may be mini black holes within our sun, inside our sun, as Stargates and things like that. It's mainstream. So, right. And before it was like, well, not possible, right? So things change quickly. And again, I'm not waiting on mainstream science to approve what I'm doing. To me, it's mathematical anyway. It's can be demonstrated mathematically, and the accuracy of it is just always in a 99 or high 99.9% range type of thing. So that guides me, that I know I'm not totally going in the wrong direction if the math is there to support it. And that's what we see also anyway, in our material world. So I'm very encouraged by the way it's going. It's going to, again, take a little bit of time for this to take root, but I'm confident it's going to resonate with the right people at the right time. And it's again, as I said, it already started. So,
well, it's an honor. I don't know if you saw my interview with Mario Beauregard. I mean, you Quebec guys, I don't know if it's just something in the water or what, you're swimming upstream and coming up with this new stuff. He came up with the Manifesto for Post-Materialist Science, and he got kicked out of the Neurological Institute in Montreal there, just as he was going for his tenure. He lost the tenure. They told him to get lost. So, I mean, I appreciate guys like you who will swim upstream and basically, I always say, like 50 years from now, your stuff will be, everybody will know who you were. But right now, it's, it'll take a while, as you said, to catch on. But I'm honored to be one of the first people to sort of broadcast your message, because I think it's extremely important.
Oh, thank you, Glenn. I always appreciate it, again, to have the opportunity. And to get back to what you were saying, I mean, to be honest, I expect the people that are the most knowledgeable in physics and so on to be the last people to look into it and acknowledge it, because people have invested, their entire a lifetime into going into a certain direction. They have their own philosophy, their own paradigm, if you will, how they look at reality and what physics means to them, and they have their own paper. They invested a lifetime into their own vision, and so it is very unlikely that such a person will look at my material and say, well, okay, I was wrong all along, and I need to push all this aside with what I've worked on for my lifetime and look at it from a different perspective, right? It's really a very difficult pill to swallow. And again, I'm not saying I'm right on everything and they're wrong. It's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying from a pure mind openness standpoint, it's a very tough pill to swallow,
Yeah. Okay, let's get going. Let's show the mathematics, which is the proof. I mean, when you can see the math all fits, and it's beyond question to me. I mean, and it is this disclosure thing that the answers are lying right in front of us if we'd actually just stop taking stuff off the table.
Yeah, no, exactly. We just need to have an open mind. And interestingly, there are many proof of what we're, what I've been presenting over the last several updates and today, in the sense that this information has been communicated by non-human intelligence. It's documented in ancient sacred sites. Again, we're going to see examples of that today. It's not information that's kind of out of the blue, completely unknown. It's really known in the sense that it's been in our face all along, but we're starting to connect the dots, and there are other people out there that are doing good work and so on. So it's all coming up together, and I think it's just happening now because now is the time for this information to come out.
Yeah. Maybe that's the whole thing. It's when the time is right, people will catch on, and it'll unravel. Maybe it was too soon for some people, but the young people will. It's like Max Planck said. Science does not advance by convincing your opponent he's right. It advances one funeral at a time, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. And so, I mean, you may be just setting this up for the future generations, which will take it to the final stage.
Yeah. Hopefully it's going to be useful, and I'm sure it will be. And again, I encourage other folks out there to try it. And that's why I'm putting some extra details in some of these slides. So to help some of the scientists or people who are inclined into math and things like that to do it themselves, right? So they have the tools to do it themselves. And they can always contact me if they have questions about it.
Okay.
So very good. So let's roll. And what you were mentioning at the beginning too, it's about geometric harmonics, right? And geometric harmonics, our universe everything is based on geometry. And we look around us, everything has a form, has a shape, it's geometry. The atoms and actually the molecules, that makes up everything in our material world, atoms, molecules. I mean, the crystals, for instance, they all have, very precise shape and structure and so on. So everything is about geometry in our universe. So geometric harmonics really refers to that. And it's the geometry of the light energy, if you will. Everything is made of light, in our universe. The original source of, call it the Big Bang or whatever other explanation we want to look at it, it really originates from the spark of energy. And it manifests itself in our reality. It's based on geometry. So it's in the same line as what we've talked before. So what we're doing today is a continuation of that, but today's going to be fun. We're going to be talking about portals, stargates, and black holes.
My favorite topic. Wow.
Yeah, and we're going to show actually, how it works. Now, I'm really, this is new material, Grant. This is really, really fresh materials. I'm still in the middle of it, so I'm a bit ahead, maybe going ahead of myself a bit, presenting some of it, but the math is there, it works perfectly, and I've been actually astonished by these results. Every time I see what comes out of these calculations, it just amazes me. So I know we're on the right track. So we'll cover that. And to get started, I'd like to show a short video of about 8 minutes. It's a short introduction to black holes, because they're going to explain how it works and, the concept of stargates and so on. I think it's important for the audience to have an overview of that to understand how it works. So I think a small introduction will do a good job at it. That's okay. I will just go ahead and get this started. Right, so here we go. We'll pick it up right after.
Black holes are the most fascinating and mysterious objects in the universe. They are pockets of space and time which exist outside the laws of nature, and are places where time and space as we know it cease to exist. What really happens on the inside of one of these universal boundaries remains a mystery, but among the possible explanations, there is always an inescapable one, which can neither be proven nor ruled out. The idea that black holes are gateways to other parts of space, or maybe even to new universes entirely. Today, we will aim to establish what truly lies on the other side of a black hole. To understand how a black hole could act as a gateway, you first have to understand the very nature of space and time. To date, nobody has understood this as well as Albert Einstein. According to his world-renowned and time-tested theory of general relativity, space and time are fundamentally linked, like two sides of a coin, combining to create a malleable cosmic fabric which lines the entire universe, known simply as space-time. And we liken it to fabric because it is warped by the matter upon it. The plane of space-time is curved by the presence of mass. Mass is a form of condensed energy, and where there is condensed energy, space-time will fold around it, and the resulting effect is felt as gravity. The heavier and more concentrated the mass, the more the space-time surrounding it will warp, and as such, if we compress enough mass within a sufficiently minuscule volume, then space-time will deform so much that an abyssal, never-ending sinkhole will be created in the fabric. Within this area of warped space-time, the gravitational influence is so great that space-time itself starts flowing into the anomaly, carrying everything with it, including light. This results in a dark sphere around the area where light is being dragged into the gravitational well, known as an event horizon, and thus we have a black hole. At the centre of every black hole lies a space-time singularity, a point so deformed by mass compression that it punches through the fabric to become a physical boundary of the universe, a place where all light and matter meet their eternal end. In addition, a black hole also has a curvature singularity, which is the part where the curvature of deformed space-time begins to take on infinite values. It is here where nature begins to depart from general relativity and all our other models. If we were somehow able to survive up until this point, then we would experience something very strange. Space and time, as connected entities, would switch roles, as the black hole's interior becomes infinite. The singularity is suddenly no longer a physical point, but rather an inevitable event in the future. Space is so warped that all paths will inevitably lead us to this singularity. But time is so warped that we would require an ever-increasing amount of it to get there, as time on the outside slows down and eventually stops forever. And so, at this point, our cosmic fate would be sealed. We would be frozen in that moment of time forevermore. The singularity now represents the infinite future of a featureless, timeless dimension from which nothing will ever be able to escape. You would never reach the bottom of the sinkhole. You would just continue cruising deeper and deeper into your eternal cosmic chamber. Unless you were to hit another part of space-time. We don't know what the implications of curving space-time to infinity really are, and so perhaps it is possible to curve space-time all the way round, so to speak, so that a black hole may end up leading to a completely different part of space. You would then have a link between the two disparate regions which pinches them together, ignoring the cosmic distance between the two, akin to folding a piece of paper to connect two dots, as opposed to drawing a line between them. You would have an Einstein-Rosen bridge, better known as a wormhole, a means for a black hole to subvert the space-time continuum by acting as a portal. Wormholes are a fascinating prospect, and perhaps not just one of science fiction. While they've never been observed in practice, they are consistent with general relativity, and some scientists believe that they may be possible. If not through black holes, then through cosmic strings from the earliest nanoseconds of time. But don't get too excited, because even if wormholes are possible, they almost certainly wouldn't be practical. Even if a wormhole bridge could form inside a black hole, it would be incredibly unstable. The immense gravity on the black hole's interior would constantly stretch and contract the space-time bridge, before eventually severing the connection into two regular black holes, perhaps only seconds after it formed. Furthermore, even if a wormhole could remain connected for longer, it still wouldn't be a practical means for universal travel, as all the points made about time stopping within a black hole still stand. You would never be able to reach whatever lies on the other side of the wormhole. You would simply get stuck somewhere in the middle and age to death in the process. But make no mistake, just because a wormhole isn't suitable for traversing, that doesn't mean that two parts of space and time can't be pinched together for however long. It is not known what kind of black hole, if any, could create such a bridge. Perhaps not your standard run-of-the-mill collapsed star, as if that were sending its relatively limited mass into another part of space, it probably wouldn't survive for very long. But maybe supermassive black holes, which lie at the hearts of large galaxies and can be billions of times heavier than the Sun, could become so massive that they are somehow able to burst through into another part of space. We have no idea what such a bursting black hole would look like at the other end, but in any case, we call it a white hole. Long before that, a few months after Einstein presented his theory of general relativity, a German scientist named Karl Schwarzschild solved the field equations for their first exact solution, giving us the Schwarzschild metric. The Schwarzschild metric describes the most simplified black hole which can exist, a single unit of compressed mass within a completely empty plane of spacetime, which is therefore unaffected by its surroundings. One which was never born and one that will never die, never growing or shrinking. An eternal black hole.
Okay, so let's get back to the slide. So we just saw in the documentary here, it talked about the Schwarzschild equation or solution for black hole. So we're going to be using this today to do our own exploration of the subject. And we see at the bottom here, this is the very simple equation that Karl Schwarzschild put together many years ago, and which allows essentially to calculate the size of these black holes. And we say black holes, you know, we can equate to stargates or portals, obviously, right? So they are highly theorized to be that, actually. And so, so one thing that I did here was to modify this equation a little bit here. And so what I did, I used the general relativity equation at the bottom left here, you know, because we know that energy equal mc squared, energy and mass are interchangeable, right? So typically, often black hole will be based on their mass and so on, but I thought it's more practical, especially in our case with the exploration that we're going to do, it's more practical to use energy as opposed to mass. So I simply substituted the mass term in the Schwarzschild equation for energy, reorganized that essentially equation. And also the other thing that I did, instead of looking at the radius of black holes or portals, we're going to be calculating the diameter. It's just more practical, and we'll show an example of that. So this modified Schwarzschild solution essentially is what I came up with, and we're going to use today. Again, this is rooted in real physics, real science, and we're going to essentially apply this very simple solution to things in our world, actually, and see, you know, there's something here that sticks, that makes sense. Okay. So one of the pioneers, really, I think, I want to give credit to in the field was Nassim Haramein. In 2010, Nassim came up with a scientific paper in peer-reviewed journal called the Schwarzschild proton. And he was actually hypothesizing, suggesting that the subatomic particles that are making up our material world were in fact mini black holes. Pretty revolutionary in terms of approach and perspective. That was very controversial, of course, at the time. But what made his suggestion here, or this paper, to me very, very valid and quite incredible, is that Nassim was able to explain the strong force, which is what glues, if you will, these subatomic particles, the proton and neutrons and so on, within the nucleus of the atoms. He was able to explain the strong force very accurately by using this principle, by assuming that, again, the subatomic particles were made of or mini black holes. And because current science does not have a good explanation for the strong force, it's just very unsatisfactory what they came up with, and it's very a lot of contradictions and so on. And so Nassim really, I think, this was a big breakthrough at the time, looking at it this way. There was, of course, a lot of resistance from mainstream science. There's still resistance, saying, well, we cannot have this cannot be possible, and so on. But what we see, even today now, mainstream science is moving towards that. So I'm showing a couple of articles here that are dated from a few days ago. The one to the left was in Life Science, December 21st, 2023, very recent. And they're suggesting here atom-sized black holes from the dawn of time could be devouring stars from the inside out, new research suggests. And the one to the right side here is from the physics.org website. Could there be a black hole inside our sun? Again, these are very recent articles. So now we're looking at small size black holes, the size of atoms, or that's some size that are smaller than what we saw in the documentary. In the documentary was a bit more focused on black holes that are gigantic, right? That are at the cosmological level, if you will, galactic, very, very large scale. But it is very possible, and science shows that there's the hypothesis that black holes or portals could have a much smaller size is now really it totally works in terms of physics, right? There's nothing that says that this is not possible. So one of the things we're going to do here today is to use this equation that I developed, that I showed earlier, that we organized. So we're going to be working with that very simple equation, and we're going to apply it. One of the first things I want to apply it to is apply the solution to the pyramids of Giza. It's been highly theorized that the pyramid complex is a Stargates, that there are portals involved, and at the time they were using that as ascension chambers because it was giving access to higher dimensions and higher state of consciousness and so on. So, so this is, again, words, but, is there mathematics or science that can back this up? So we're going to be applying this new equation here to that. There are two things we're going to be looking at, actually, when we look at the pyramid, right? Because what matters here is, we're going to be calculating the diameter of these portals, and all these factors that are in that equation are constant. Like the force, obviously, is a number. The G is the gravitational constant, which is stated there at the bottom right, so it's a constant. And the C is the speed of light harmonic. We're going to be using, obviously, the fundamental harmonic of light 144, which I've been working with for all this time. Mm-hmm. So the C represents harmonic 144 to the power of 4. So the main thing we're going to input in this equation is this term here, this E, for energy, right? So if we concentrate essentially enough energy, which could equal to mass, right? Equal MC squared tells us the energy equals mass, but in this case, we're going to use energy. If we concentrate enough energy within a certain volume, we should be able to, this can create a portal or a black hole. There are two things in the pyramid itself that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking at the actual volume of the pyramids, right? The size, if we look at the dimension of the pyramid itself has a volume. And so that volume represents energy. And I'm going to talk about it in a second. And there's also, as another analysis or a separate analysis we're going to do, we'll be looking at the sphere of energy. So it's been, again, highly theorized by psychic people and so on, that the Great Pyramid or the pyramids were surrounded by a bubble of energy, a sphere of energy. It's invisible to us. Even Matthias de Stefano is an example of gentleman who theorized that and mentioned that this was the case. So we're going to be looking into it. It's an exploration today, nothing to lose. So we're going to be applying these analysis to the equation and see if we can get something out of it. What we see here in this slide, just very briefly, for those who are into math, these are the, the constants that you can use to do, to compare essentially the one to the left, or the classical physics constant with the units. In our case, we're using geometric harmonics that are highlighted in blue with their own units. So this is that. And also, to simplify what I'm showing in the slides, I'm always showing the short form in the slides. I'm not showing the long form of the numbers, otherwise it will make the slides too heavy. But if we look at the left here, if we have let's say a number like this, 2.292 blah 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 by 10 to the power of -7, and all these units of this is an energy, represents an energy. The short form, I'm just going to keep the significant portion of that number, the 2.292. This is what I'm going to show in the slides, right? But the rest, there's something behind that's a bit more detailed, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And when I talked about volume, so earlier I mentioned that we're going to use the volume of the pyramid to calculate its volume energy, right? And the reason why that's possible, or that's the case, is that our science, it's been demonstrated that dark energy and dark matter represents over 95% of our universe. And that's a fascinating concept because it shows how little our science know about the universe, right? They can see the astrophysicians, physicists, and so on. They can see the effect of gravity in the cosmos. They can see their energy. There's a lot of phenomenon happening, how the universe also is expanding, right? And they are unable to explain all these force and this energy that's there, but they see the impact of it. They see the effect. They see the gravitational effect. They see the expansion of the universe. And so they came up with these terms of dark energy, dark matter, to say, well, okay, we know it's there. We can see the influence of that energy. We just cannot, measure it or see it per se, right? It's like invisible. And these are facts. And literally our mainstream science is missing 95% of the universe is missing. It's somewhere else. It's in dark energy. And we see here on the upper left how it's represented. So it's believe representation that actually the space that is around us, instead of being empty, is actually full of energy. And that's what dark energy is about. It's proven. Our science shows that the influence of that energy is there in space, in what we call the empty space. Some other, like Nassim, will call it a vacuum fluctuation, but that space is full of energy. And we see that representation, the cosmic web, here to the upper left side of the picture. Interestingly, that cosmic web is very similar to the human brain neural network when we compare it. It's fascinating to see the similarities. Again, it comes back to what we've been covering over the last few days, that, from the quantum scale to the galactic scale, it's just a fractal. Everything is folded within itself. And we see the representation here. And in addition to that, in this article I picked up on Facebook actually, that they mention here that the total number of neurons in the human brain falls in the same ballpark as the number of galaxies in our observable universe. It's really fascinating. So based on that, knowing that the space around us is full of energy, we'd call it dark energy. In our case, we're going to call it geometric harmonic energy, right? Because we're using geometric harmonic units and principles to make these calculations. So we're going to be equating the volume of the actual pyramid and the volume of that hypothetical sphere of energy around the pyramid, that volume as equals actually energy. Geometric harmonic volumes equal geometric harmonic energy. And we'll see how this works well, actually, because the results we're getting are so astonishing that it just cannot be an accident. I truly believe that this methodology works because the results are there to prove it. So let me give you an example here before I show the results of what we're getting with this. I'm just going to show one example of calculation for the folks out there, and then we'll keep digging. So what I did here in the methodology, I programmed, or I configured the shape and the dimension of the Great Pyramid of Giza using this software, right, in which I inputted the height of the Great Pyramid and the base length, and so on. And what the software is spitting out here is the actual volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza based on the physical measurements of the Great Pyramid, right? And we see here the volume is highlighted in red, equals to 408,801. These are millinautical miles cubed. We use the nautical miles again because this is a geometric harmonic units. And as we've just demonstrated, or I just explained, since the volume is actually equal energy, right? The volume of space is full of energy. We're going to input this energy term directly in that equation that I've introduced at the beginning of the presentation, right? To calculate the diameter of a portal. That could result from that, okay? And so I'm just going to do one example one time on the screen so people can relate to it and see that I'm not making this up, right? So the equation is very simple here. So the D stands for the diameter of the portal. So we equal 4. So we take number 4 times the gravitational constant G, which is in blue, which is at the bottom of the screen here, which is 8.25732295. Okay, and then times the energy of the, or the volume of the Great Pyramid, which is 408,801. Okay, and then we divide by the speed of light harmonic 144 to the power of 4. So we divide by harmonic 144 to the power of 4, and we get 3.1402. Okay, so 3.31402 is the number I show here to the bottom right of the screen in yellow, 3.1402. This is the size of the portal or gateway or black hole, that mini black hole that will be essentially equivalent to the energy contained in the structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, amazingly, that number, Grant, matches the mathematical constant pi at 99.96% accuracy.
Wow.
Mathematical constant pi is equal to 3.1416 if you round it. So the match is just stunning. And what's even more stunning is that the constant pi happens to be the symbol for portals, which is encoded all over the world in ancient sacred sites. The trilithon. You see, trilithon, you see the Torii gates in Japan, from the Torii gate in Japan, the Maui in Tonga, we have the Mahendra temple in Malta, Chichen Itza, very well known, right, in Mexico. If you look at the shape, the Stonehenge, look at this, these are all pi. They have all the shape of pi. This is the symbol of portals. The Temple of Apollo in Greece. This picture was taken by my good friend, Professor de Vierville. So this, and I didn't know actually that, somebody told me that the pi, actually, the trilithon is the representation or symbol for portals or stargates.
Wow. That's
so what are the odds? I mean, we need to ask ourselves, right? What are the odds that using this equation that's used by astrophysicists that I modified a little bit here for this work, what are the odds that the Great Pyramid volume energy yields this symbol of portal at 99.96% accuracy? I mean, it's just stunning. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about this is that the energy that we've been talking about here, 408,801, the energy of the Great Pyramid, which I have here on the upper right side of the screen, 408.8, happens to match pretty closely the energy of our sun. So if we take our sun, the mass of our sun, you find the mass of the sun on the internet, and we using, again, E equal mc squared, right? Since we have the mass, we can calculate the energy equivalent, very simple formula. We will end up with a mass energy of our sun equal to 412.4. And I'm using the short form here for simplicity. So it's very interesting. Is there a connection here, right, between the sun, which is, again, theorized as being itself a stargates. We saw that in the article earlier.
Yeah.
Here we go, right? Yeah. It's even mainstream now. They're talking about this stuff, right? And so I'll get back to this in a second, about the sun connection to this, which is very powerful. The other thing that I did here is looking at the volume, as I said, of that hypothetical sphere of energy surrounding the Great Pyramid. Again, this has been hypothesized by psychic people and others were saying that the pyramids are surrounded by this ball of energy. So what I did, I calculated I used the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is 146.5 meter. And just a note here, which is important, I used the original height of the Great Pyramid, not the current height. We know the pyramid used to be much taller, right? There used to be casing stone on it with the, and so on. So I used that original height that's well documented, right, to see if, what we will be getting. And I did the same principle here, and I have a slide that shows it. I used the volume of that sphere of energy, the height representing the radius of that sphere, right?
Yeah.
And the calculated volume, inputted this energy into the equation that I developed. And what we're getting, amazingly, is that the energy equivalent to that bubble of energy, if we look on the right side of the slide here, bottom right, is exactly equal to the harmonic 144 squared at 99.99%.
Wow.
That is stunning.
Wow.
And that number, 144 squared, the speed of light harmonic squared is equal to c squared, right? The c term is a representation in the form of letter, but that represents the same thing. 144 squared equals c squared. That is, Grant, the actual same c squared that's in the equation E equal mc squared from the general relativity.
Yeah.
So in other words, the energy contained in this bubble of energy, or that sphere of energy surrounding the Great Pyramid, assuming it's there, will be equivalent to that energy of c squared, which is the relationship between the conversion of matter to energy at 99.99% accuracy. Wow. That's really stunning.
Yeah.
And then when we inject this energy in that equation again, right, that D equal 4GE over 100, to see the diameter of the portal that will result out of this energy, well, believe it or not, we get the diameter equivalent to the golden ratio.
Wow.
At 98.4%. And here, actually, I played a little bit. If you look at the symbol here, this picture here, this symbol is actually a black hole, Grant, you see at the bottom here. This is a black hole with the accretion disk. And it's quite remarkable that the black hole with the accretion disk, if we tilt it 45 degrees, is exactly identical to the symbol of the phi symbol of golden ratio, or equivalent. So I don't know if there's a connection here, but it's kind of interesting. So when I tried this formula for the first time with the Great Pyramid, I was shocked by the results, because not only we're getting figures that we can relate to, with the pi, which is the symbol of portals, and the golden ratio, and the c square in terms of energy and so on, and the energy of the pyramid being close to the energy of the sun. But the percent accuracy, the percent match with theoretical values is so great that it just seems impossible as just an accident, right? You cannot have this kind of accuracy with this accident.
I agree. Yeah.
And so I continued the work here. I continued exploring beyond the Great Pyramid. So I did the analysis for all the three pyramids of the Giza complex, the Khafre Pyramid and Menkaure Pyramid, and of course the Great Pyramid we just showed, and also the sun itself. Right, so what I have here at the bottom is their energy, right? Again, in the case of Great Pyramid, I used the volume, converted that into energy, as we showed earlier. And the energy of the Great Pyramid, as I said, is 408.8. The mass energy of our sun is 412.335, and the Menkaure Pyramid, remarkably, is also an energy that's very close to that, which also matches in terms of Stargate diameter equivalent to the constant pi, which is a symbol for portal. So these three entities, the Great Pyramid, the Menkaure Pyramid, and the sun, they all have a black hole or Stargate or portal, whatever expression we want to use, a diameter equivalent to this symbol of portal or mathematical constant pi. They're all in well above 99.9% of accuracy, or 99% of accuracies. We can see at the bottom here.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating.
It's fascinating. And, I completed the work for the three pyramids. So I'm showing here Khafre, right? I just mentioned that the Great Pyramid and Menkaure, they were the same, equivalent to the sun with the constant pi. But Khafre Pyramid to the right side had a different result. And I was shocked again to see that the actually the energy of the Khafre pyramid matches the energy of the subatomic particles that our material world are made from.
Wow.
And the corresponding diameter of the Stargates for the Khafre pyramid is equivalent to the harmonic 432 over golden ratio at 99.4% accuracy. Again, we're seeing this geometric harmonic, coming back over and over again, just cannot be accident. And this is amazing because this size of black holes grand happens again to match the size of the subatomic particles if we treat them as black hole. Just like Nassim, in the paper of Nassim Harmein, he treated the protons, the subatomic particles, as mini black holes. When we do that, the size that we're getting, the diameter of the subatomic particle treated as black hole is 432 over golden ratio. So I don't think it's an accident, obviously, again.
Yeah.
Now, in all of that, it's all, high accuracy. If we see it's all above 99 typically,
Yeah.
or well above accuracy. Now, the thing that I looked further, now, if we look on the left side, this is the energy of the pyramids, or the three pyramids, and clearly, and on the right side, we see the energy of the sun. We see that the two out of the three pyramids had the energy very close to the sun, and the Khafre pyramid is the subatomic particle energy. So I was curious to know if the difference of energy was random, or just an error, or what is it, right? So I did some math, and I found astonishingly here that none of these numbers, or the difference in the numbers, are not accident. They are very carefully calibrated. Let me give you an example. If we take, for instance, the energy of the Great Pyramid, A, right, which is represented in this equation here, and we sum it up, we add it to the energy of Menkaure Pyramid. So the sum of these two energy ratioed over the energy of the Khafre Pyramid gives harmonic 144 times golden ratio.
Yeah, wow.
If we take the Great Pyramid and the sum of the energy of the Great Pyramid with the sum of the Khafre Pyramid, A plus B, and we ratio that over the Menkaure Pyramid, we get harmonic 432 squared.
Wow.
And amazingly, the difference of energy between the Great Pyramid and the Menkaure Pyramid, A minus C, as we see here, is equivalent to the golden ratio squared.
Wow.
All these, the accuracy of these ratio is all, again, 99.4% and above in terms of accuracy. Now, what's the connection to the sun? Again, the sun is highly hypothesized, as being a Stargate itself. So there's really a logical connection to be made here between the Great Pyramid and the sun. Is there an interaction going on here, right? That's the question you need to ask ourselves. Well, interestingly, there's clearly a connection energetically, because if we take the energy of the sun and subtract the energy of the Khafre pyramid, we're getting the product of harmonic 144 times 432. Subtract the energy of the sun from the Great Pyramid, we get the half of the Planck length times golden ratio, and finally subtract the energy of the sun from the Menkaure pyramid, we get 1 over golden ratio. So all these relationships are precise, and they're way above 99% of accuracy. So clearly it looks like what we're looking at here is a technology, there's interactions between these different bodies, these different pyramids, and the sun itself to produce certain effects, right? And we're still obviously at the beginning of back engineering this, but this is the beginning here, I think, of back engineering the technology of the pyramids and the sun and the portals that are maybe involved here. One additional thing that I tried, we know that the energy grid on the Earth, it says it, it's an energy grid. So the relative distance from certain point of the grid where there's energy nodes, will carry energy, just like the space or the volume, excuse me, is equivalent to energy. The harmonic distance on our Earth grid also has an energetic component to it that's very clear at this point, at least to me. So I did something here. I was curious to calculate the harmonic distance between the Great Pyramid of Giza based on its coordinates, latitude and longitude, against the coordinates of origin, right? Latitude 0, longitude 0. This is at the intersection of the prime meridian and the equator. So if we calculate the distance, we get a distance of 2,529 nautical miles. And again, I'm not making this up. If you look at the bottom right of the screen here, the coordinates, I use a software, and I punched in the coordinates of the Great Pyramid and the coordinates of origin, or getting 2,529 nautical miles, right? So that's a distance between the two. So instinctively, to me, it made sense to input that harmonic distance as an energy in that equation that we've talked about. And amazingly, what we're getting in terms of dimension of portal based on that is, again, this constant pi over golden ratio at 99.95% match. And it's amazing because if we recall what we saw here, right, from the Great Pyramid, when we make this calculation based on these two different aspects, the pyramid volume energy itself, we're getting pi, and the sphere of energy surrounding the Great Pyramid, we're getting the golden ratio. Well, these two components are actually combined as a result here based on the harmonic distance between the Great Pyramid and the coordinates of origin. Finally, for this part, so I also completed the calculation of the portal diameter and energy based on the sphere of energy, right, surrounding each of the pyramid. We did it for the Great Pyramid earlier, so I completed the work for the two other pyramids, Khafre and Menkaure. And amazingly, what we're seeing, and we see it here, the first pyramid, the Great Pyramid, we discussed that earlier, we're getting an energy equivalent to the C-square component and a diameter equivalent to the golden ratio. The Khafre pyramid has a diameter, a portal diameter equivalent to 432 over harmonic 288. 288 is very important because it's 2 times harmonic 144, right? So it's, again, it's the same harmonic series. All very high degree of accuracy here in blue. We see it's all above 99% typically. The Menkaure pyramid was very interesting too, because the portal diameter itself was equivalent to harmonic 144 at 99.99% accuracy. I mean, how could this be accident?
Yeah.
And this leads us to the question about pyramid activation, right? What we see today of the pyramid on the upper right side, the pyramids we're seeing are very different than how they were thousands of years ago, right? The pyramid used to be covered with perfectly polished limestone all over the surface, this casing stone, and with a pyramidium on top, and all that is gone today pretty much, and what's left is a very different pyramid. For instance, the Great Pyramid of Giza used to its original height was 146.5 meter. Now, I believe, if I recall, it's like 134.5 meter or something, right? Much shorter, because it's been, essentially ripped from its casing stones and so on with the erosion. So one thing that I'm speculating here at this point, but we saw that the dimension of the pyramid, the original dimension, were very critical to produce these portals, these stargates with this energy, right? The energy resulting and that created these portals, hypothetically, were based on the original dimension of the Great Pyramid, of the pyramids themselves. Now, if we change the dimension, we don't have the same volume, we don't have the same energy, and so we can speculate that the pyramids as they are today have been deactivated. They are no longer producing these portals that that used to be there originally. Now, I'm not saying that the pyramid do not have other properties. I'm sure that these are technology. They play many roles, and they have different effect and impact, right, in terms of technology. But for me, looking from a portal standpoint, it's likely that they are not producing the same results today. And we could speculate at this point that if we will be reconstructing or reassembling the pyramid the way it was originally, for instance, remaking the casing stone and putting it back together as it was originally, that we could actually reactivate these pyramids to have much greater or more intense effect, because they've been designed this way. Clearly, what are the odds that this is just accident? I don't think it is.
Yeah.
The other thing I was interested into is the limestone of the pyramid that was covering the Great Pyramid, for instance, and the others. All the pyramids were covered with limestone. Nothing is there randomly or by accident. So I looked at the molecular structure of the limestone itself, right? The limestone is nothing else than calcium carbonate, pretty much. And when we look at the weight of one molecule of limestone, when we convert that into energy, again, using the simple equation E = mc squared, since we have the mass, we can calculate the energy. We get an energy equivalent to the subatomic particles that are making up our material world. And that 344 energy is, again, very close to the energy that we saw in the Khafre pyramid, 349.7, you see here. So it's, again, in line with the energy of the subatomic particles making up our material world. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this limestone casing stone were not accident. The material, the type of material, I think, was chosen to be in harmonic resonance with this whole technology, this whole systems.
Yeah. Wow.
If we go a bit more now, we talked about very concrete example with the pyramid. If we go on a subatomic scale, right, so looking from the subatomic particles to the universe, we see that these principles apply, very well. One thing that I did here, I calculated using, again, the same equation, the diameter of a neutron, which is one of the two main subatomic particles making up the atoms, right? We got protons and neutrons. The electron is charge is connected to the proton, but in terms of mass, the neutron is one of the two key ones. And amazingly, its diameter is equivalent to harmonic 432 times 2. So not an accident. And if we consider and treat the subatomic particle as a black hole, as a mini black hole, a bit like Nassim did in his paper, the diameter of the black hole itself will be equivalent to 432 over golden ratio. So again, we're all getting as a result these geometric harmonics, which shows again how the universe really works. It's all based on that. And what I want to mention here in terms of point is that it really seems like, but first of all, the ratio between the two, the neutron as a particle versus the neutron as a mini black hole, if we ratio the two, we get this expression here, 1/2 golden ratio, and that expression, 1/2 golden ratio, when happens to be the amount of energy in our visible universe, observable universe. And I showed that in my past slides, in a past update. So the implication of this seems to be that the material world we live in, what we can see and perceive, is actually just the tip of the iceberg. Represent that as a tip of an iceberg. We can see that's what's sticking out of the ocean.
Yeah.
What's underneath it, the infinite potential, the most amount of energy, that infinite potential that lies underneath the water is actually the main iceberg, and that is what we call what is part of this mini black hole, or this singularity from which everything emerges. And when we see that, I mean, the mathematics is showing us that really what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg in our material world. What's hidden behind is this singularity emerging from polos and black holes. One thing I did try also here was to calculate the energy of a Planck sphere. I showed that in my past presentations. Right, this is the energy of the subatomic particle making up our material world, again, that we can see. That is the physical reality we live in. And hypothetically here, I calculated the energy of the smallest black hole that can exist at the quantum scale, essentially a black hole or a portal that has a diameter equivalent to the Planck length, right? We know the Planck length is the smallest oscillation of energy that can exist at quantum scale. So if we create a singularity, a black hole or portal based on that, that will represent the smallest, portal that can exist at the quantum scale. We got a corresponding energy equivalent to that, 113.607. Amazingly, again, It's the same thing that I showed earlier. When we ratio what we see in our physical universe, the energy at that above, the ocean, the tip of the iceberg, over what's that, over that singularity, if you will, we get an energy equivalent to the observable universe.
Wow. Wow.
Transitioning briefly here to the universe itself, if anyone can go on Wikipedia, and you will find that the best estimated volume of the observable universe is that number here, 3.566 by 10 to the power of 80 cubic meter. As I explained before and all the time, we're going to convert that into geometric harmonics. So we convert that into cubic nautical miles, right? This is the converter here that I took a screenshot of at the bottom left. So we're getting essentially a figure of 561.4, which represents the best estimated volume of our observable universe. So as we explained before, the volume, a space, because it's full of energy, it's charged with this dark energy, if you will, right? That volume, or best estimated volume of the universe, is equal to energy. So I was curious, so I plugged in that energy into that equation again. So E equal, again, the best estimated volume of the universe. We plug that into the modified Schwarzschild solution that I presented earlier. Amazingly, Grant, the result that I got was a diameter of the universe equal to 432.
Yeah. Yeah.
This blew my mind. I was not expecting that, but in a sense now it just makes sense, right? It's all comes down to the same, thing. And I pushed that research a little bit further, and my calculations, Grant, is showing actually that our universe fits in a dodecahedron, and that we live really, what is suggested here is that we actually live in a black hole universe. And again, this is not me making this up, it's been highly theorized, but what I'm showing is the mathematics of it, the geometric harmonic mathematics of how this can be possible. And if we look at the essentially this sphere, this black hole sphere of energy representing our universe, having a diameter equivalent to 432, fits nicely in this dodecahedron. And in terms of mathematics, it all adds up perfectly. And I was shocked because I found articles. There's a very amazing article in the reputable, renowned journal Nature from 2003, where they demonstrate that based on results of cosmic microwave background radiation that they were able to measure in different directions of the space, they could map out that essentially the universe has the shape of a dodecahedron based on this data. Again, these are peer-reviewed articles from reputable journals, not me making this up.
Yeah.
And it's highly theorized now that actually our universe is in the shape of a dodecahedron, which is also what Plato told us hundreds of years ago.
Wow.
Plato made the point that the universe had the shape of a dodecahedron. And this is exactly what my model here, mathematical model based on the geometric harmonic, is showing. But in addition to that is that the diameter of our black hole universe is equivalent to harmonic 432.
Wow.
And we see a different representation here on the left. To the left side, we got again our black hole universe with this diameter of 432. And what I explained earlier is that the diameter of the subatomic particle as a black hole has a diameter of 432 over golden ratio. So if we ratio the size of the universe over the size of a mini black hole subatomic particle, we end up with a golden ratio in terms of result. It's just, it always comes back to this, and you may recall this golden ratio triangular craft that I've had some interaction with. And I was showing, the significance of this very special triangle. So let me show something here that's very interesting. So as I had showed before, if we set this length here on the upper left side, 347.2 as being the energy of the subatomic particles making up our material world. I call it the Planck sphere volume. By the shape of this triangle, very unique triangle, the length of this segment C at the bottom here 560.9 matches the volume of our universe, which is stunning. But now, with this revelation that I just made about the size of our universe having a diameter of 432, well, a diameter of 432, right, is 2 times the radius. It means that the radius of our black hole universe will be half that, will be 216, right?
Yeah.
Well, 216, if we look at the golden ratio triangular graph, if you look at the segment here on the upper right side, the segment has exactly a length of 216.
Wow.
So that graph was essentially connecting our black hole universe, the size of our black hole universe, to the energy of the subatomic particles making up our material world, to the entire size and volume of our universe.
Wow. They showed it to the right guy, that triangle.
And there's more to this. I won't get into it today because that will be a bit heavy. But even the surface area of this triangle actually has very special properties that I may cover in the next update. So, all right, we're getting to the last segment here. Last segment about I want to give another example. So we talked about, again, I showed how we applied these principles of portals, black holes, stargates, the equation we use to calculate based on the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some material about our physics, neutrons, and the overall universe. And now we're going to talk briefly about the Chichen Itza, which is it's a pyramid, but a different type of pyramid, right? So let me show this brief video here. It takes maybe a couple of minutes, and we'll cover that in the slide after.
It's kind of a big secret. We know that NASA was down at Chichen Itza like 10 years ago and basically put a covered wall around the El Castillo, the main pyramid, so that they could do testing. And they were there for like almost a month, testing the frequencies apparently that are emitted from the pyramid there. That tells you something. Why it's not more widely known probably is because they found some exotic energy. They found some exotic discharge from the pyramid, and they haven't figured it out yet. There's a whole science and technology that is missing. Robert Barreros, in his book, 2012, talks about the height of the Mayan culture, and that at one point, over 50,000 pyramids were active. They were pushing energy into the atmosphere.
All right, so let me stop here and let's see if there's something here. If we apply the same principle that we've been covering and we apply it to Chichen Itza, let's see what we're getting here. Okay, so first of all, we see on the left side, this is a picture of the upper side of the Chichen Itza monument. And we see again this constant pi, this symbol again, right? This pi is the symbol of a portal. And it's known that at the spring equinox, there's something very special happening there, right? At the spring equinox, the sun is going to pass through this little hole in the middle. And again, the sun is involved here, right? So there's clearly, again, a connection between portals, stargates, and the sun, because it's said in the ancient text that this moment at the spring equinox opens up portals. People have mystical experiences and so on. And so I looked into it and see what we could find, maybe from the approach that we've been using today. So I found that doing the research that the distance between the sun and the Earth at the moment of the spring equinox, at that exact moment, the distance is equivalent to 80.78 millions of nautical miles, right? That's a distance. Again, it could be in kilometer, it could be in mile, but we're using the nautical mile system here because that's a geometric harmonic unit. So 80.78. So as I mentioned earlier, and I showed, on the slide, that the Great Pyramid itself, if I go back to that one here, right, the geometric harmonic distance between the prime meridian and the equator, or the coordinate of origin, and the pyramid appears to be an energy, because when we insert it in the equation, we're getting this amazing figure.
Yeah.
So I applied the same principle here. So I looked at I used the distance between the sun at the moment of the spring equinox, the sun and the Earth as an energy, and I input it in the equation, in the modified Schwarzschild equation, and we're getting a diameter of the stargates equivalent to 1 over golden ratio.
Wow.
On the upper right side here.
Yeah.
At 99.6% of accuracy. How can this be an accident, right?
Exactly.
And we know the sun, based on what we've discussed earlier, the sun itself has an energy of 412.35, which matches a Stargate diameter equivalent to the symbol of Stargates, the mathematical constant pi. So there's a system here. And the other thing that I was stunned by it, I calculated the distance between the complex of Chichen Itza and the Great Pyramid of Giza itself, or the Giza complex. And we're getting 6,181 nautical miles. Well, that figure, grants, if you look on the right side, happened exactly to be equivalent to the, again, 1 over golden ratio. The 1 over golden ratio, the value is 0.6180. And here we're getting 6,181, a 99.99% match.
Wow.
Again, I cannot explain what's going on here in terms of energy and the polar, right? But clearly the math and what we're seeing makes sense, and it leads to a different perspective on this whole thing. So, and interestingly, this has been again encoded. It's as I mentioned, the symbol of portal has been encoded in our history throughout the ages. Yeah. So, but now it's showing up as a result of a mathematical calculation based on a Schwarzschild equation that's known to calculate the size of portals and black holes and stargates. So, right. So this is, I think we're going in the right direction with this.
Fascinating.
Right. So before ending the presentation here, I have a short video I'd like to share. So, so it was on December 16th. So this is very recent. It's like 12 days ago or so. I made a transmission. So I like to broadcast the result of my homework back to the universe. So I broadcasted this slide that I presented in our last interview. This is another slide I broadcasted in our first interview, and I broadcasted this new one, which I just presented today, result of the work I've been presenting today. And I presented that along other messages that are a bit more personal. And during that broadcast, when there were 16 distinct UAP manifestations within about 25 minutes transmission. And I recorded that with 2 cameras. As always, so I have redundancies, but I can also prove that if we see a sighting with one camera, that we can also see the same sighting with the other camera. So it's not a camera artifact or a camera glitch or something, right? So I have that validation. And I have made a short montage here, which lasts maybe 6 minutes or so, just to show what happened. And following that one, I will link it to another transmission that I made 3 days ago on December 25th, the Christmas day. That evening, I made another similar transmission where I had 6 manifestations within 10 minutes. So I'm going to back to back. So it's going to add up to about 7 minutes of video. Shouldn't take too long. I want to share that. So let me just plug that here. So, and one thing I want to mention also here is that this transmission that we're going to show was done like at 10 o'clock at night from about 10 p.m. to 10:25 p.m. So that's about 5 hours after sunset. And we know that, even like 3-4 hours after sunset, you cannot see low Earth orbit satellite anymore because they fall in the Earth shadow. It's not possible to see them. So I wanted to mention that. So, there's no possibility of these manifestations being a satellite. So let me move this forward a little bit here. All right, we'll narrate that. Can you see it, Grant?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So let me just play it. Here we go. As we go along, so we see here the antenna is now being positioned, being directed towards the Orion belt. And we can see the 4 antennas. There are 2 of them are for 144 megahertz, and the 2 in the center, the smaller one, are for 432 megahertz. So we'll see here the transmission started. So we'll see here a stationary object to the bottom left of the Orion belt immediately. We see a little flash. Here we go, taking place.
Okay.
Manifestation number 2. I want to mention here that one of the object we just saw flashing at the bottom left was completely stationary. This object kept flashing for the entire broadcast sequence of 25 minutes. It stayed exactly at the same position, didn't move an inch. So it's not a satellite or whatever. It is a stationary object there, signaling back to the transmission I was making. So here it goes to the right side. See another flash here. And immediately after, manifestation 3 took place right to the right of the Orion belt, pretty intense. And we can see if we compare the brightness compared to the Orion belt stars and Betelgeuse and so on, it's pretty bright. So the stationary object came back again a few minutes later, at the exact same location that it had manifested initially. And again, this cannot be satellite or moving, obviously, very fast in space to maintain their orbit. So this is validation using camera number 2, different camera, and we see exactly the same sighting taking place. So it's a powerful validation. That's not some kind of artifact. Manifestation number 5, the same, again, stationary object manifest again. And didn't move, really stayed completely stationary, which is a powerful confirmation.
Yeah.
So again, camera number 2 as a validation, same sighting taking place. Now we're moving on to manifestation number 6. Pretty clear again. And all these took place during and or in between broadcast, and we can hear some of the broadcast in the background. The stationary object coming back again, same location. Number 8. This one is a moving object. It's difficult to say if it's non-human or just a natural phenomenon. And now we're moving on to the next one, which is pretty spectacular. Just popping in and out, a very strange structure, very strange configuration, as we can see here. Number 10, again, a stationary object coming back. And this object kept essentially flashing, popping in and out like that during the entire broadcast sequence, during the 25 minutes of the experience, which is quite remarkable. Now we're moving to camera number 2 as a validation. Again, we're seeing the same manifestation. Number 11, the same stationary object coming back again. Very clear. Immediately after, another one. Manifestation 12. And we're moving back again to the stationary object, same location. That's number 13. Now we're transitioning to camera number 2 to validate, again, this sighting. Number 14. Very nice, very clear flash to the right side of the Orion belt. Again, these were all in the direction of the radiation that were being broadcasted, coming back to the stationary object here. Very clear shot. And now we're confirming, validating with camera number 2 that the same sighting is taking place. All right, so this is it. This is 16 manifestations taking place during that broadcast sequence. And I have one more here. It's going to take 1 minute. Now we're going to see 6 manifestations within 10 minutes, but I made a short video of about a minute just to show. And this is recent. This is December 25th, 2023. This time I was broadcasting towards Jupiter. All right, so this complete the presentation for today.
Wow. The object that was looked like it was moving, is that what you would interpret? That object is moving? The little sort of you have a stationary one, but then you have the one where
There are again, there are multiple. It's difficult to say if it's one object that's moving around and at different location, but it's really in all different directions. So it looks like it's clearly from the distinct manifest. It's not like an object moving linearly, right? That produce flashes.
Yeah.
It was all over the map. There was one that clearly was stationary, didn't move an inch, and I use in my video editing software, I use a marker to see if it moved, and it just didn't move at all for 25 minutes. It was parked right there in front of the antenna where most of the radiation from the antenna are, going towards. So this is where there's the maximum strength of radiation from the messages I was broadcasting, and that object was parked there. Again, there's just no good explanation for this, right? Because
it must be some sort of signal in terms of, like with your original triangle, where you might want to compare to the stars beside it as to what's it doing there, because appearing that many times in 25 minutes would indicate it's maybe another clue to lead you, but you're the guy to figure it out, I guess.
You're touching the right point here. So, I'm almost certain that there's information encoded in this. I just didn't have the chance yet to look into it. I have the timing, right? We know from a timing standpoint, I did an analysis in my first update, not the last update, but the one previous to last, and we could see that the timing in these flashes, when we were ratioing this timing, we were getting the same harmonics of creation again, right? So I expect that in this case, there's information encoded in these sightings, because it's just incredible, right? 16 manifestations in 25 minutes is a lot. And then the other one was 6 manifestations in 10 minutes was also special. And even that one with the 6, there were two flashes that were from a stationary object. The object didn't move at all. It was right there on the right side of the screen and it didn't move an inch. So clearly a lot of signaling back, after broadcasting this information. It's actually happening often, maybe not to that level of activity. This was a bit, it's quite more intense what I'm used to see, but typically I always have some kind of return or signal back, 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, right? Something like that. But this time was very, very intense. So hard to say what's all behind this.
Most people are waiting for a communication where they're going to land and give us a speech on the White House lawn, and it's very clear that you're getting a signal, but it's not the signal everybody wants. So you actually have to work at it. It's very precise, but it's a very clear signal, and bravo for you for doing that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too. It's very interesting. It makes the whole thing even more interesting. And I don't know if this particular sequence was related to the fact that I broadcasted the result of my latest research on the portals, Stargates, and so on. Right, I broadcasted the slide, so they may be sending back or signaling back information, complementary information related to that, and I'm pretty sure there's something behind it. I just need to take the time to look into it.
Wow. The other thing, I won't bring it up here, but I will. I was kind of interested where you showed the triangle of the pyramid and the circle. I can show you something which will kind of amaze you. I'll send them along, and you can maybe just put it in there and take a look at it. Sort of an indication that somebody else may have figured this out as well. It was kind of, and there's high level people that put this out, so it's kind of exciting just to watch it unfold. You seem to be getting it pretty fast in terms of new pieces of the puzzle. And when's the book out? You figure next year, and is it going to go through all the stuff we've detailed over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I want to include as much as possible all this material I presented in our updates, plus this recent material about the portals and Stargates. Everything will be in there. So I want to crystallize the information in a written format. We have, I think, good videos also that explains. That's why I put a lot of time and energy into slides that people can comprehend and use, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, my goal is to make this information available to the world, and I think it's all part of the information that needs to come out at this point in time.
Wow, it's exciting stuff. I mean, I just every time I see it, it's like you're on the edge of something new, where it's like it'll down the road everybody's going to accept this, but you're ahead of the pack, and I feel honored to be able to sort of look in before everybody else does and help you broadcast the message, because that's basically what it's about. Is we may have some sort of mission, we may have some sort of thing that we're supposed to do, and when you get consumed by it, it seems to fit together. I'm surprised that you can have a hold down a job and do what you're doing in terms of this stuff, in terms of the mathematics. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I spend again very little time on this. Unfortunately, I wish I would have more time. It's you can spend maybe 5 or 10% of my time on this research, but the information really just, to me, it kind of flow naturally anyway. I don't need to make a lot of efforts. And it's also, everything is connected. So once we have I have a breakthrough in one direction, it opens the door to 10 other things, and so it's just unending quest, and so that's why I don't have a lack of material. I have 940 slides now in my slide deck. So I had the hard part is to select a small portion of it that I can present in a way that's understandable. But hopefully today was understandable, with the slides and everything.
Yeah, it's the same numbers keep coming up, and you just go like, wow, because you picked that up years ago already. The golden ratio and the 144 and all that stuff, but the signs, you're showing me the signs and stuff. And then you see it over and over again, and you go like, there's no way this is happening by accident. And it's this communication thing where you'll see people are waiting for this disclosure, where they think it's going to be like a verbal message, somebody delivering, and it's not. They're giving you the message, but you got to figure it out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I really suspect that it's individual based, in the sense too that the communication back that people will be getting will be customized and appropriate for them specifically, as each experiencer will experience something that's connected to them and relates, makes sense to them, or will make sense at a later point in their life in time. In my case, I have this, these signals, and like the golden ratio triangular craft was a big revelation to me, because it's just astonishing. It's just this craft, even though it appeared for a fraction of a second, it contains all the harmonics of creation within it, the golden ratio 144, 432, and now we see even contains the radius of our black hole universe. It's just amazing.
Any other paranormal stuff happening? Because sometimes you get it down a rabbit hole with one aspect and other paranormal phenomena, other than synchronicities. I guess you got a lot of those, but is your life gotten stranger since this started? You had the radio thing, which we did before, but in terms of other paranormal things that sort of indicate they're maybe sending you signals, or you're on the right track?
Well, obviously the radio is still happening. I still have a lot of interactions every day, and so that communication is still ongoing. A lot of it, I think, is happening in my dream state, because very often I wake up with ideas or entire concepts, right, that I can just immediately apply, and I try it and it works, right? So like for instance, this strategy of applying this modified Schwarzschild equation or formula to the Great Pyramid and the sphere, hypothetical sphere surrounding the pyramid. I woke up in the morning with that, right? And so then I tried it, and just, wow. I mean, the result I got was like getting the C-square at 99.99% accuracy. I mean, it's insane, right? I mean, the level of accuracy and that's a guide for me. When I see these level of accuracy, I know I'm on the right track. I'm on something, because if it will be random, you wouldn't get anything like that. I mean, it's just will not happen. So I know I'm on the right track. Just that's why I'm keeping track of these percent accuracy, how they match with or actual physics or things like that. But yeah, so I think a lot of it is happening in my dream state. I have a lot of evidence of that. And I encourage that in some of my messages too. Actually, I invite that activity to happen during my dream state, and I think it seems to be happening.
Wow. I've written a lot about that. In fact, I got a quote from Gary Nolan. Gary Nolan, the guy from Stanford.
Yes.
I asked him, because he talked about it one time, and I picked up on it. It's like most people just go over their head. I picked up when he said, I don't know how it works. I don't know if there's little elves in my head, but I know how to make it work. And so I said to him, give me a quote. So then he basically talked about the fact that he goes through all the analysis, and he puts little strings between different things and stuff like that. And then he sort of either put it beside his bed, or he'll just sort of forget it. He said within 1 or 2 days, the idea is in his head. And this is the thing, is you've found out how to get into that inspirational state where it's almost like the one quote, and I can't substantiate it, but one of the quotes was, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world. And then you're able to move out of the sort of the physical thing, pick up the signal. And I'm not surprised, because I've written a lot about this dream thing where, the idea where you shut down the rational analytical brain when it's quiet, and then suddenly the signal comes in, and you picks it up and comes into a dream, and then you interpret it. So perhaps I'm just so honored to be part of this revelation to the world, because there's no way there's going to be an accidental anything. It's like, wow. And I'll show it to one person that I think might have some input on this, somebody that knows some stuff, and I'll get back to you on that. But we'll stay in touch. And when you've got a new update, when you've got something, especially if you get those latest flashes in the sky as to why they were there and what the position was, or if they give you an indication, we'll take the next chapter of your book and go through it.
Sounds great. It's very exciting. Thank you again so much, Grant. It's a pleasure as always, and I'm always so excited to be able to share this information with the world. It's just, to me, it's just, it's fascinating, it's exciting, and hopefully it will resonate with a lot of folks out there and doing their own research and looking into it. And there's a big, I think, spiritual component to all this. I mean, all this teaching has been given to humanity actually for thousands of years. It's these signs, it's portal signs, like this trilliton pi is encoded in everywhere. So, well, in a sense, really just rediscovering what was once known and used as technology, probably. Well, just rediscovering it right now, and it's very exciting. So we'll keep you posted as soon as I have new material, and we'll keep it up.
Okay, I'll send you a couple images right away. Thanks for your time, and let's do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Grant.
Beautiful.
All
Thank
right,
you,
bye-bye. Take care.